For much of the past decade, aggressive growth targets dominated corporate strategy. Companies set ambitious revenue goals, rapid expansion plans, and bold market capture timelines. Stretch targets were celebrated as signs of confidence and leadership ambition. Missing them was framed as failure. In 2026, that mindset is fading. Across U.S. businesses, internal guardrails are replacing aggressive growth targets, and this shift reflects a fundamental change in how companies manage risk, execution, and long-term survival. The primary reason guardrails are rising in importance is uncertainty that does not resolve. In earlier cycles, companies believed volatility would pass and growth would resume on predictable terms. Today, uncertainty is persistent. Interest rates, regulation, technology shifts, supply chains, and labor dynamics all change continuously. In this environment, rigid growth targets become liabilities. Guardrails offer flexibility without paralysis. Internal guardrails are not about slowing down. They are about defining limits. Instead of asking how fast the company can grow, leadership asks how much risk the company can absorb. Guardrails set boundaries around spending, hiring, leverage, pricing, and operational complexity. Within those boundaries, teams are free to execute. Outside them, caution applies automatically. Execution risk is a major driver of this shift. Aggressive growth targets often force teams to move faster than systems can support. Corners get cut, dependencies pile up, short-term wins create long-term fragility. Guardrails reduce this pressure by making sustainability a requirement rather than an afterthought. Growth is allowed only if systems, people, and finances can support it. Capital discipline reinforces the move away from aggressive targets. Capital is no longer cheap or unlimited. Boards and executives scrutinize how each dollar is deployed. Guardrails prevent runaway investment, driven by optimistic projections. Spending decisions are tied to capacity, not just opportunity. This protects balance sheets and reduces the risk of painful reversals. Hiring strategy reflects the same logic. In the past, companies hired aggressively to meet growth goals, assuming demand would justify headcount later. When conditions changed, layoffs followed. Guardrails now limit hiring based on productivity, workload stability, and margin impact. Growth in people is paced to growth in durable demand, not forecasts. Revenue quality has become more important than revenue quantity. Aggressive targets often encourage discounting, short-term deals, or low-quality customers. Guardrails protect pricing discipline and customer fit. Companies accept slower top-line growth if it preserves margins, retention, and long-term value. Boards increasingly prefer fewer, stronger customers over rapid volume expansion. Operational complexity is another area where guardrails matter. Growth targets often ignore complexity costs. New markets, products, and integrations add overhead that is hard to unwind. Guardrails force leaders to consider complexity as a cost, not a side effect. Expansion decisions must justify not only revenue potential, but also long-term operational burden. Technology strategy has shifted accordingly. Instead of building systems for hypothetical future scale, companies optimize for current reliability and efficiency. Guardrails limit architectural overreach. Systems are designed to scale responsibly rather than impressively. This reduces technical debt and failure risk. Investor expectations also influence this change. Markets have become skeptical of aggressive promises that fail to materialize. Companies that consistently meet modest expectations are rewarded more than those that miss ambitious ones. Guardrails help align internal planning with external credibility. Fewer surprises build trust. Culturally, guardrails change behavior. Teams focus on quality execution rather than heroic effort. Decision-making becomes calmer. Fewer emergencies arise because boundaries prevent overextension. This reduces burnout and improves retention, which in turn supports more consistent performance. Importantly, internal guardrails do not eliminate ambition. They redefine it. Success is measured by resilience, predictability, and durability rather than raw speed. Leaders still pursue growth, but they do so within constraints designed to protect the organization. Some critics argue that guardrails encourage complacency. In practice, the opposite is often true. Clear limits sharpen focus. Teams innovate within constraints. Resources are allocated more deliberately. Waste declines. Execution improves. The rise of guardrails also reflects lessons learned from recent cycles. Companies that chased aggressive growth often paid later through restructuring, write-downs, and reputational damage. Guardrails institutionalize those lessons. They prevent organizations from repeating mistakes under pressure. Why internal guardrails are replacing aggressive growth targets ultimately comes down to realism. The environment no longer rewards speed without control. It rewards organizations that can operate steadily while conditions shift. In 2026, the strongest companies are not those growing fastest on paper. They are the ones that know exactly how far they can push without breaking. Guardrails provide that knowledge. This shift may look conservative from the outside, but it is strategically rational. It allows companies to move forward without betting their future on fragile assumptions. Aggressive growth targets once defined leadership confidence. Today, disciplined guardrails define leadership maturity, and in a business environment shaped by constant change, maturity has become one of the most valuable competitive advantages a company can have.